Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Medrek. I am the Executive Director over here at Great Marriages for Sheboygan County, and I want to welcome you to our event entitled Love and Respect. Before we get into the love and respect materials, in case this is your very first event with us, I just wanted to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. Our mission here at Great Marriages is to prepare and strengthen relationships, enrich marriages, and keep families together. So not only do we work with married couples, but we also offer events for singles, dating, and engaged couples. We want you to have a healthy family, and we want to teach you how to have a lifelong marriage. That is our goal for you. The vision of Great Marriages is a community of strong, vibrant, joyful, lifelong marriages. Some of the things we do are monthly events like this one. We also have our core program, which is called Couple to Couple Mentoring. That's where you take an online assessment and then we pair you up with one of our talented mentor couples, and they walk you through a curriculum called Prepare and Enrich. It takes about 8 to 10 weeks if you are experiencing a time of crisis, and approximately 6 to 8 weeks to work with engaged couples to prepare you for marriage. Something else that we do is a marriage retreat. So this year, 2021, is on August 27th to 28th. So you can check all of these events out on our events page of our website. So here is the website, great-marriages.org/events. Another item I want to share with you is our Facebook and our Instagram. If you are not connected with us on social media, please do so after this event. We post wonderful, inspirational relationship materials every single day. So check that out on our Facebook and Instagram. So today's topic, as I mentioned, is love and respect. This is a book and video series by Dr. Emerson and Sarah Eggerichs. And here is what Emerson and Sarah have to say about love and respect. The love and respect connection is the key to any problem in marriage. This is not just a nice little theory to which I add a few Bible verses. How the need for love and respect play off one another in marriage has everything to do with the kind of marriage you will have. So it sounds like a simple concept: love, respect. But there's a lot more to it. It is simple, but it is not easy to do. Let's put it that way. So a couple principles, 2 principles for healthy relationships: love and respect. And we can think about this personally for ourselves. We can think about this with our spouse, or if we're dating or engaged, our partner. And then as a parent. So maybe you're listening to this and you're single, but you have children. This can also relate to your children. So this is a faith-based event. I'm just going to read some of these Bible verses to you quickly to show the love and respect concept. So loving God. Matthew 22:37-38 says, Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." And then Matthew 15:8-9 says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God." So personally, if you have a relationship with the Lord, you want to kind of take to heart some of these verses. The next one for your spouse, Ephesians 5:33 is what the whole love and respect concept is built off of, this one verse. So you're going to see it show up a few times in our presentation today. Ephesians 5:33 says, "So again I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." That is Ephesians 5:33. And what about our kids? Titus 2:4 says, "These older women must train the younger women to love their husbands and their children." Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord." Colossians 3:21. Is there a conflict then between God's law and God's promises? Absolutely not. If the law could give us new life, we could be made right with God by obeying it. And then parents, we as parents need respect from our children. That last verse is Exodus 20:12. "Honor your father and mother, then you will live a long, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you." So, foundation to a healthy family. What does this look like? If you're a Christian, if you're a believer, as we personally grow closer to Jesus Christ, we grow closer to one another as a couple. So, if you see this triangle, if you have Jesus at the top and husband and wife at the bottom, as you grow closer by reading the word, prayer, however you decide to do that, you are going to grow closer to each other. As you get towards that point, you also grow closer to other. So that's kind of the concept of this triangle. Love and respect has 3 cycles. So we're going to go through all 3 of them. The first one is called the crazy cycle. A lot of us live here constantly. Some people live here occasionally, which is what we want for you. The second cycle is called the energizing cycle. That's going to be the longest portion of this, is how your love or your respect can motivate the other person. And then the last cycle has to do with people who are Christians, who are believers, and that's called the rewarded cycle. Talks about your relationship with God and how that affects your relationship with your spouse. So here's the crazy cycle. What it means is you start at the top. Without love, she reacts without respect. Without respect, he reacts without love. So this is the crazy cycle. When you're arguing, you're spinning around on this crazy cycle. And here's some of the thoughts that Emerson has. The female response when you're on the crazy cycle, it's a negative reaction. We think in our minds, he needs to change. We complain and criticize to motivate him to be more loving, which when you see it in writing doesn't sound like it makes very much sense, but it's a lot of times what we try to do. And it's hard to respect him. The male response, there's a negative reaction. In the male mind, and I've heard my husband say this, she has changed. So women think he needs to change. Men mostly think she's changed. She's not the same she was when we were dating. And that's normal. Like there's different stages of relationships. He's feeling disrespected. So he's going to try to motivate her with harsh words, which if you read that, it sounds ridiculous as well, but this is what we do. And it's hard to love her. So this is what the crazy cycle is all about. Again, here's that verse. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So God made women to love. They want to love. They need to love. It's like an air hose for women, like we need love to breathe. And for the men, their air hose is respect. God made men who long for respect from coworkers, from friends, and most important, if you're married, from their wife. They long for that respect. So, deciphering the code. Husbands and wives, we speak in code to one another. The problem is we don't even know how to decipher the messages we're sending each other sometimes. I'm going to read to you an example. This comes from the Love and Respect book. We have these in our library if you are interested in checking them out. But this is just going to show you how things can start just spinning on that crazy cycle really fast. A couple was about to celebrate their 10th wedding anniversary. The wife began to wonder if her husband would remember. There had been plenty of times during the past decade when he had forgotten their anniversary altogether. No matter what she did, little hints, bigger hints, he would miss it. But on their 10th wedding anniversary, 10 years, that's pretty amazing right there, with no hints at all, he remembers. He makes a beeline for Hallmark and is soon gazing upon all those racks full of greeting cards. One colorful card quickly catches his eye. He skims the words. They're perfect. He thinks this card is her, no doubt about it. He grabs it off the shelf, pays the clerk, and hurries home rejoicing. Finally, he has remembered their anniversary, and a special one it will be too. She's there when he arrives at home, so he sneaks the card into another room, signs it, and quickly writes her name on the envelope. He even adds a couple of tiny hearts over her name as an extra touch. Then he comes out and hands his wife her 10th anniversary card. She beams from ear to ear. She's so happy. Finally, he has remembered. She tears open the card and begins to read, and then her face falls. The eyes that had been bright with loving energy turn cold. Her beaming countenance becomes sour and dark. What's wrong? Her husband asks. He's a very sensitive guy. He can pick up on these things. Nothing. There is too. What's wrong? No, there's nothing wrong. But there is. I can see it. What is it? Well, it's not bad for a birthday card. As you might guess, the conversation is headed downhill from here. You're kidding, says the husband, grabbing the card from her hand. No way. Unbelievable. No, you're unbelievable. The husband blinks in the face of his wife's very real anger. He knows he is full of goodwill. He has remembered their 10th anniversary. He has bought her a present as well as a card. Well, honey, I made an honest mistake. Give me a break. Give you a break? An honest mistake? Oh, it was an honest mistake, all right, because you just don't care. Do you know that? If you took your car in to be detailed and they put a stripe on the side that was even a fraction of an inch off, you would notice that, right? Why? Because you care about it. But you don't care about our anniversary. You don't care about me. You see how the crazy cycle just started to fly? The husband can't believe it. He's moving from feeling guilty to getting angry. What he thought would be a loving celebration of their 10th anniversary has become a conflict that is escalating fast. Hey, I made an honest mistake, all right? Give me a break. Good grief. You buy me a birthday card on our 10th anniversary and you expect me not to be upset? I'd rather you hadn't bought me any card at all. The husband has been on the defensive, but now his pulse rate is up. He's tried to do the loving thing, and all his wife can do is say nasty things. You know what? The way you're talking, I'm glad I got you a birthday card for your anniversary. And with that brilliant parting shot, he storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Approximately 2 minutes have passed since he handed her the card. This couple, a husband and wife who truly love each other, have come home expecting to spend a wonderful romantic evening together. Instead, they end up stomping into opposite sides of the house, staring out the windows into the darkness, wondering how it had ever come to this, and thinking, this is crazy. This story is based on an actual incident, and Emerson says, I have collected many others like it from couples Sarah and I have counseled. Angry exchanges are caused when the husband appears careless, depriving his wife of love, and when the wife reacts with criticism and complaints that are vehement, depriving the husband of respect. And why should she be respectful? He can't even deserve her respect. So that is just one example. There are many others in the book, which I would highly recommend that you come and check out and read. A little more about deciphering the code. We send these messages in code, even though we don't intend to. What I say is not what you hear, and what you think you heard is not what I meant to say. So read that again, because it happens all the time. Here's an example. The wife might say, I have nothing to wear. And she really means, I have nothing new, right? You've probably heard your wife say that, or if you're a woman, you've probably said this. He says, I have nothing to wear. And he means he has nothing clean, right? So they're saying the exact same words, two totally different meanings. So this is how you can see relationships can be interesting at times, because we have to decipher what the other person is saying. And something they talk about quite a bit if you watch the Love and Respect video series or you read the book is he asks, what is the issue when the issue isn't the issue? Okay, when the issue isn't the issue, it means you're arguing about something, you're spinning on this crazy cycle, but it's probably not even about what you're arguing about. There's an underlying issue. Okay, so in almost every case, the issue that seems to be the cause of the craziness is not the real issue at all. The wife needs love. She is not trying to be disrespectful. The husband needs respect. He is not trying to be unloving. Grasp this basic principle and you're on your way to cracking the communication code. Okay, so there's usually something underlying where the woman's feeling unloved, so she lashes out. The man's feeling disrespected, so he withdraws and doesn't give her the love. That's why they call it the crazy cycle. In the book, they also talk about pink and blue. So obviously women are the pink, men are the blue, and pink and blue sunglasses means, this is a good illustration for you to think about when you don't see something the same as your spouse. Men and women see things as different as pink and blue. They can look at precisely the same situation and see life much differently. Inevitably, their pink and blue lenses cause their interpretation of things to be at odds to some degree. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you get on the crazy cycle, maybe you're just seeing things differently. There's also pink and blue hearing aids. And this, of course, is all about how we hear things. Men and women may hear the same words, like the example we just talked about, I have nothing to wear, but they're going to get different messages. So what you need to do when this happens is watch for the deflating of your spouse. They're sending you a code. Does she feel unloved? Maybe you say something and all of a sudden you just see it. Or he gives her the card that says happy birthday and he sees her deflate. Does he feel disrespected? Did you use a tone that you weren't intending to use and now he feels disrespected? We're trying not to step on each other's air hoses. So remember, the woman's air hose is usually love, the men's is usually respect. So if you see your spouse deflate, you see them physically just change, then you might want to think, ooh, did I just say something that he interpreted as disrespectful, even though I didn't mean it that way? Or did I just sound unloving, even though I really didn't mean it that way? These are the things we have to do to stay off the crazy cycle. Men hear criticism as contempt. Women feel silence as hostility. So again, that crazy cycle. She feels unloved, so she acts disrespectfully. He feels disrespected, so he acts unlovingly, and then you just spin round and round and round. What you need to understand is that a lot of times your wife or your significant other will criticize out of love and because she cares, but he only hears disrespect. He will distance himself to prevent things from escalating, which is the honorable thing in his mind, but she sees only his failure to be loving. So there's a event that we do called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, and they talk about stonewalling. So if you ever hear the word stonewalling, that's where one person just goes silent, they ignore the other person, they leave, or they just won't talk. Okay, it's silent treatment. It's also called stonewalling. So most of the time, it's the men that do this. They think they're preventing things from escalating, but really, the woman feels unloved when he ignores her or refuses to talk to her. So the crazy cycle can be slowed and stopped if only we have eyes and ears to hear. Who will be the mature one and move towards their spouse first? So this is something you might coin as a phrase, or when you're arguing, you might throw it at your spouse. I'll be the mature one and I'll move towards you first. Okay, we're really supposed to use it in a more mature way. Think to yourself, if your spouse just isn't wanting to get off the crazy cycle, you can be the more mature one and move towards them first and try to reconcile. And I would, like I said, I highly recommend get this book and read it for many, many more examples. They give real life examples that really help you put these into practices. Keys to lifelong marriage. Both of you know that you love each other, right? But there are days when you don't like each other. That is normal. Conflict actually in marriage creates a stronger marriage. Doesn't feel good at the time, doesn't feel good at all, but knowing that you underlying you love each other, it's okay if some days you don't really feel like you like each other. The key to the lifelong marriage is unconditional love and respect for one another, resulting in total commitment to one another. Okay, so use this concept. Women, remember, the man needs respect. That's his air hose. And men, remember, the women need love. That's our air hose, and that's unconditional. So unconditional respect isn't something that's talked about a lot, but we always think, oh, you have to earn my respect. Well, if you're married, you're supposed to unconditionally respect your spouse. We'll get into that a little bit more later. So how do you move from this crazy cycle to the next cycle, which is called the energizing cycle? Husbands, consider this. Since my wife is reacting in ways that feel disrespectful, is there a chance that I may have done something to make her feel unloved? Think about that. And women, wives, do I really believe that my husband hates me and wants to make my life miserable? Is there something I might have done to make him feel disrespected? So think about those two things if you're starting to spin on that crazy cycle. The next cycle is the energizing cycle. This is where we're going to spend a lot of time because this is where Emerson and Sarah really get into the nitty-gritty of how to get out of that crazy cycle and what the men need, what the women need. So this cycle is his love motivates her respect, and her respect motivates his love. So you motivate one another. And there's a principle for the men, which is an acronym called couple. And there is an acronym for the women that we're going to get to after we go through this called chairs. So we're going to go through couple first. Couple means two people. If you think about the word couple, it's two people connected together. This is the key to how women view relationships. Okay, the wife wants connectivity. Women confront to connect because they care. We said that a little while ago. Men think their wives confront to control. We're really confronting because we care. When your good-willed wife appears negative and offensive, she's crying out for couple, these concepts here on the screen. Your feelings may tell you she's being critical and disrespectful, but what she really wants is to connect. She wants your love. The first 30 seconds, think about that. What do you do in the first 30 seconds when one of you gets home? That's going to set the tone for the rest of your day or the rest of your evening. If you're working at home, one of you isn't, they get home, get up, give them a hug, give them a kiss. You can stop for 1 minute and greet your spouse. It will mean a lot to your wife if you're the one working at home and she's the one coming home, that she feels important that you will stop your work and come and greet her. I'm going to read you another little story. This is about what my 4-year-old, this is Emerson talking, what my 4-year-old taught me about connecting. So remember, women want to connect. We want to feel close to our spouses. So here's what he said. It's very cute. If a husband will adjust his blue sunglasses and blue hearing aids, he will understand that his wife has a need to feel close and connect face to face in a way that he does not. Think about coffee shops across the land where cappuccinos and lattes are sipped and savored. Many of these shops have little round tables with 2 chairs facing each other. Usually 2 people are seated at these small tables, leaning forward face to face, hand under chin, and they're talking. Are these talking people men or women? As a rule, they're women. Women like round tables that place no one at the head in a position of leadership. They like to see eye to eye and connect on a personal level. I learned about this female need for face-to-face connection from my daughter, Joy, when she was just 4 years old. One evening, I put her to bed and I lay there with her for a few moments to help her get to sleep. The room was pitch black and Joy was talking as usual, little Miss Motormouth. Neither of us could see the other in the darkness. As she was talking, suddenly she said, "Daddy, look at me." Then with her little hands, she reached over, grabbed my face, forcing me to look towards her. Already at this age, even in the dark, she sensed that Daddy wasn't looking. And if he wasn't looking, then he wasn't listening. I cannot recall my sons, Jonathan and David, ever grabbing my face like that and demanding, "Look at me." This connectivity is what women look for in any relationship, and especially marriage. When she married you, she thought you would be like her best girlfriend. You would figuratively sit with her at the little round table and talk eye to eye. But that probably didn't happen. With many husbands, it seldom or never happens. Okay, so she needs that closeness and that connectivity to you. So let's just talk a little bit about involvement or independence. So what he says about this is, before you take a guilt trip about this, realize that no man can meet all the emotional needs of a woman. And women, you need to realize that as well. At the same time, perhaps you can start to try to meet some of your wife's needs by foregoing your tall, cool one, your newspaper, or your sports center. You can understand what she is doing when she moves towards you, which she normally will do. That's why she follows you around in the evening, or did when you were first married. It's her way of showing you she loves you. One way to picture your marriage is with a line that has the word involvement at one end and the word independence at the other. So that's what we have on the screen here. In a typical marriage relationship, she leans more toward the involvement side, while he leans more towards the independence side. When you get too independent, especially when you stonewall, like we just talked about, she does not feel close to you and begins to feel you don't love her. When she doesn't give you the space you need, you begin to feel that she's trying to get too involved and doesn't respect you. The line illustrates the tension that exists between your basic needs for involvement and independence. Tension's not bad, it is simply there. In fact, it's a necessary part of your relationship. A degree of tension in a marriage is actually one of the things that makes the relationship good. We talked about that a little while ago, how conflict actually makes your relationship stronger. So I'm sure you've heard of the golden rule. So to paraphrase the golden rule, Luke 6:31 says, just as you want your spouse to treat you, treat your spouse the same way. That's like a paraphrase of it. So you can either motivate your wife rightly, or you can demoralize her. It's your choice. Remember, we're focusing on the men right now and closeness. So your wife feels close to you. I'm going to give you some lists of things at the end of each letter that will give you some ideas. So your wife feels close to you when you hold her hand. I love that. You hug her. You are affectionate without sexual intentions. You are with her alone so you can focus on each other and laugh together. You go for a walk or jog, anything that results in togetherness. You seek her out. Set up a date night, eat by candlelight. You go out of your way to do something for her, like run an errand. You make it a priority to spend time with her. You are aware of her as a person with a mind and opinions. Let her know you enjoy discussing things with her and getting her insights. You suggest the unexpected. Get takeout, eat on the beach, take a walk to see the full moon, park on the bluff and watch the sunset. Of course, if you have small children, you'll have to come up with some other ideas. You pillow talk after making love. Lie close with your arm around her and share feelings and intimate ideas. I know men don't like to share feelings sometimes, but this is a great time to do it. And never turn on your Sports Center or your Nightline. Yeah. So that was closeness. Now we are going to move on to the O of couples, which is openness. She wants you to open up to her. Women are usually expressive, responsive, and men are usually compartmentalized. So yeah, if you've ever heard Mark Gungor talk, he talks about spaghetti brain for the women. Like we express, we respond, we've got all kinds of things flying around in our heads at all times. And men are usually able to compartmentalize things. They can have a box, he calls it, for each different area. They might have a work box, a wife box, a nothing box where they think about nothing at all. So that's just something to think about when you think about your wife wanting you to open up with her. We have to understand that most wives like to stay up to date, meaning we like to discuss any problems daily to prevent major problems from developing. So you might think, why do you ask me so many questions? My husband doesn't like it when I ask a lot of questions. That's because we want to connect and we want to stay up to date with you, and we don't want major problems to develop. Sometimes men take questions or asking for information as snooping, prying, criticizing, or even trying to control him. So if we start asking your husband questions and he gets all defensive and says, "Oh, you're such a control freak," well, most of the time we're just trying to communicate with you. We're not trying to be a spy or snoop or criticize. So try to put those kinds of thoughts aside if you're a husband, and believe your wife is not trying to control you. She just wants to connect with you and feel an openness and closeness between the two of you. So you might be asking the question up on the screen there, how do you live with this sensitive creature? Well, be sensitive and don't say something like, "You're so sensitive. You shouldn't be so sensitive." That is really not going to make the situation much better. If you don't open up to her emotionally, she will feel close to you. And if you open up to her emotionally, she will feel close to you and be open with you sexually. Okay, so We just had a post on our Facebook about great sex is when the husband is open and does things for his wife outside the bedroom. Okay, if she feels close to you and she feels like you love her and you're open with her outside the bedroom, you're going to have a much more responsive wife in the bedroom. So keep that in mind. All right. Here is your list for openness. Your wife feels you are open to her when you share your feelings, telling her about your day and your difficulties. It can be as simple as, oh, work was so hard today. This is what happened. And just share with her, talk to her. You say, let's talk, and ask her what she's feeling. Ask for her opinions. Your face shows you want to talk. You have relaxed body language, good eye contact. You take her for a walk to talk and reminisce about how you met, or perhaps you talk about the kids, problems she may be having with them. You pray with her. You give her your full attention, no grunting responses while you're trying to watch TV or write emails or check your phone. You discuss financial concerns, possible job changes, or ideas for your future. All of these things are going to make her feel like you're being open with her. All right, the next one is U for understanding. Don't try to fix her, just listen. And here's a verse for you, 1 Peter 3:7. In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. Okay, there's a lot packed into that verse. Peter is making a comparative statement, not a qualitative one. He's not saying that women are weak. He's saying that a wife is weaker because of her vulnerability to her husband within the marriage relationship. When the husband does not seek to understand his wife, she is vulnerable indeed. Your wife is your ally, not your enemy, so please treat her with care. You don't have to understand us at all times, but the key is having empathy for her and living with her in an understanding way. That's what we need to get out of this verse. How can you be an understanding husband? Listen to her, and she is much more likely to feel understood. Don't go to fix-it mode right away. This is difficult as men have blue hearing aids. They hear something and they want to fix it. Okay, as a husband, if you can grasp that you don't always have to solve your wife's problems, you will take a giant step towards showing her empathy and understanding. So Emerson and Sarah have a phrase that they've come up with where he says, do you need a solution or do you just want me to listen? Okay, think about that. Ask your wife or your partner, do you need a solution or do you just want me to listen? Because sometimes we just want you to listen. We don't want you to solve all our issues. Women want to share, to feel understood, to communicate at an entirely different level. Men tend to communicate for one reason, which is exchanging information. So we have a big difference there. Wives talk to release their emotions. When you let her share her small talk and give her a chance to let off steam, she will feel good. She will feel connected to you. Okay, understanding takes scheduled time, especially if you have little ones at home. So set aside 10 to 15 minutes a day to talk. That's a long time. Most people don't talk that much. Doesn't seem like a long time, but if you could set aside 10 to 15 minutes, maybe it's before the kids get up, maybe it's after they go to bed, so you can have uninterrupted time to talk. Your wife will feel much closer to you, and she will feel that you understand her, that you're not just trying to fix her. So she will feel you're trying to understand her when, here's your list. You listen, and you can repeat back what she said. You don't try to fix her problems unless she specifically asks for a solution. You try to identify her feelings. You never dismiss her feelings, no matter how illogical they may seem to you. You say, I appreciate your sharing that with me. You don't interrupt her when she's trying to tell you how she feels. You apologize and admit you were wrong when you were wrong. You cut her some slack during her monthly cycle. Guys, really don't say things like, oh, is it that time of the month right now? That's not going to score you any points, okay? And especially if your wife has told you it's that time, then don't throw that back in her face. It's just going to make her angry and it's going to put you right on the crazy cycle. If you see something that needs to be done and you do it without a lot of hassle, you express appreciation for all she does. Honey, I could never do your job, especially those moms who stay home full time with small children. It's a tough job. And lastly, you pray with her and for her. That is going to help her to feel understood. Okay, the next one is P for peacemaking. She wants you to say, I'm sorry. This is a hard phrase for a lot of people. A wife won't feel connected without peace. So if there's a rift between you, a conflict, even a sense of tension, you and your wife are not fully at peace. Therefore, she can't really feel connected, which I mentioned a little earlier is going to affect what happens in the bedroom if she doesn't feel connected with you outside the bedroom. So without peace, she doesn't feel close, she doesn't feel you're open, and she certainly thinks you don't understand. All of this can be traced back to the tension between you. Research shows that the best marriages have some degree of conflict. As couples work through conflict, they deepen their understanding of each other and value and appreciate one another as they reconcile. So we've already mentioned this several times. I hope that is getting to all of you. So don't refuse to make peace by running from conflict with your wife. 1 Corinthians 7:28 says, but if you do get married, it is not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. However, those who get married at this time will have troubles. And I'm trying to spare you of those problems. So if your wife gets historical, starts bringing up things from the past, she's trying to reconcile with you. She wants you to be open with her, and she's trying to encourage understanding and peace between you. She wants to be sure you aren't angry with her so that she can feel loved. The delivery may sound disrespectful to you, but she's looking for feelings of love. Something he talks about in the presentation a lot is, and Sarah, the wife, says, sometimes we don't even know that our tone sounds disrespectful. So maybe you come up with, you say to each other, if you see the other person deflate, that sounded disrespectful to me, in a nice way, not an accusatory way. So the wife knows that something she just said sounded disrespectful, and vice versa. The wife needs to be able to say, that is making me feel unloved right now, or I feel unloved. Okay. So we need to practice those things so we're honest with each other so things don't start to escalate and get on the crazy cycle. Say you're sorry and what you're sorry for. Contrary to what you think, this will actually increase respect, not decrease it. So I think the important part here is you don't just say, I'm sorry. You say what you're sorry for. So she knows that you understand what hurt her and that you're willing to apologize for it. And you also may want to add, will you forgive me at the end of the I'm sorry. So let's give you your list. She'll feel at peace with you when you let her vent her frustrations and hurts and don't get angry and close her off. Don't do any of that stonewalling stuff. You admit you're wrong and apologize by saying, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? You understand her natural desire to negotiate, compromise, and defer, and you meet her halfway. You try to keep your relationships up to date. That was that talking part, resolving the unresolved and never saying, forget it. When you say forget it, then she's not going to feel at peace or loved or understood. You forgive her for any wrongs she confesses. And you never nurse bitterness and always reassure her of your love. And then you pray with her after a hurtful time. Prayer really can bring couples closer together. It's amazing how connected you will feel after you pray together. All right, the L, we're almost done with couples here. The L is loyalty. She needs to know that you are committed, okay? A wife must have reassurance. I'm going to say this is especially true if you are in a second marriage or more than a second marriage, if you have a blended family, if there's past divorce, your wife may need a little more reassurance from you. And maybe the husband does too. You have to be honest with each other. But right now we're just focusing on the needs of the wife. A wife must have reassurance. She may ask you, do you love me? Would you love me if I got in an accident? You know, don't joke about it. Say, of course I love you, and we're going to get old and gray together. That's her looking for assurance and security from you that you are committed to her. Wear your wedding ring. Okay, a lot of times you'll see couples, they're not wearing their wedding rings. A wedding ring is a sign of loyalty, that you are committed to that person and that person only. So wear your wedding ring. Sometimes people have jobs where they can't wear a hard wedding ring, but there are those silicone ones now that you can wear. So there really is very little excuse for not wearing your wedding ring. Okay, the next one, don't bring up the D word. Divorce makes your wife feel insecure no matter what the context is. Do everything you can to make your wife know you are committed to her for as long as you both shall live. Be faithful, and be faithful in your thoughts and in your actions. She might not know your thoughts, but you know your thoughts. So be faithful to your wife in your thoughts and your actions. And stay away from porn. Pornography is very addictive and it is very damaging to relationships. I put a website up here, breakfreesheboygancounty.com. That is a new organization that helps people break free from sexual sins. There's men's classes, and there's going to be a new group for women who have been betrayed as well. So here's your list. She is assured of your loyalty when you speak highly of her in front of others. You are involved in things important to her. You help her make decisions, such as ones regarding the children. You don't correct her in front of the children. You don't look lustfully at other women. You make her and your marriage a priority. You are never critical of her or your children in front of others. You include her in social gatherings when others may leave their spouse at home. That will make her feel really special. You tell the kids, don't speak to your mother that way. Or you call or you text and let her know your plans so she knows where you are. You keep commitments. So when you say you're going to do something, do it. Because if you don't, trust decreases. And lastly, you speak positively of her and the children at all times, no matter if she's with you or she's not with you at the time. All right, last one for the men is E for esteem. She wants you to honor and cherish her. So God made women so that they want to be esteemed, honored, and respected. Honor your wife by treasuring her. So Proverbs 31:28-29 says, her children stand up and call her blessed. Her husband also rises up and he praises her. He says, many women do noble things, but you are better than all the others. So that is a wonderful way to make your wife feel honored and cherished, to praise her like that, especially right in front of her so she hears it. You can use symbols to show your wife esteem. For example, cards for birthdays and anniversaries, and don't mess up and get her a birthday card for your anniversary. Flowers for no reason. You can even just pick flowers. You don't have to go buy flowers. Pick up a rock or a feather when you're on a walk. And do a scavenger hunt. I mean, if you're not artsy and you can't make your own card, you know, just put little clues around the house and do something fun like that. And then thank her for all that she does. Okay, that's really important. A lot of times, wives don't really feel appreciated, especially if they stay home with children, for all the things that they have to do around the house. So thank her for all that she does. And then there's an awesome series called Cherish by Gary Thomas. So we do have this book as well in our library here, and cherish. If you can see in the picture there, the one word that changes everything for your marriage. So you want your wife to feel cherished. And sometimes you'd hear in vows, sometimes people don't do it anymore, to love and to cherish. Well, what does that mean? Cherish. It means like putting your wife in the spotlight. You step back and you give her the spotlight. You cherish her, you esteem her, you honor her, you respect her. So if you are a reader, I would highly recommend checking out the book Cherish by Gary Thomas. All right, here's your last list. Your wife will feel esteemed when you say, I'm so proud of the way you handled that. You speak highly of her in front of others. You open the door for her. You try something new with her. You give her encouragement or praise with kindness and enthusiasm. So you really got to mean it. We're going to be able to tell if you don't mean it. You notice something different about her hair or her clothes. You're physically affectionate with her in public. You teach the children to show her and others respect. You value her opinion in the gray areas as not wrong, but just different and valid. So they talk about that in the series. We haven't really mentioned it much here, but different isn't wrong. It's just different. Okay? You choose family outings over guy things. You make her feel first in importance, and you're proud of her and all that she does. Those are things that are going to make your wife feel esteemed. So next up is for the women. And this acronym is CHAIRS, principles. Here's what they stand for. One word for each letter. Unconditional respect is a difficult concept to practice for many wives. I mentioned this earlier. You hear about unconditional love all the time. You have to unconditionally love people, your children, your husband. God unconditionally loves us. But unconditional respect is a difficult concept for many to practice. So Emerson has something called the respect test. This is how you can tell if your husband has been feeling respect. So here's what you do. You think of some things you respect about your husband. So give this some thought. You wait until your husband is not busy or distracted, and you say, I was thinking about you today and several things about you that I respect. I just wanted you to know that I respect you. And then you walk away. If he stops you from leaving and asks what things, then be prepared to tell him. So don't just do the respect test, say the phrase, and then not have anything to tell him. You need to think about this ahead of time. A husband who has basic goodwill will serve his wife when she respects him for who he is. Okay, and there's a couple little testimonies about this. One of them says, we have never had a marriage that was close and intimate and loving until I began practicing respect. I always knew that something was lacking, but I figured it was him being unloving and not me being disrespectful. Now I feel loved and I know he feels respected, and a tremendous void has been filled in our lives. Pretty cool. Another wife says, your comment was that it is easier for men to respect their wives than to love them, and easier for wives to love their husbands than to respect them. I have never come across that thought ever before. It was really striking to me. This was really, really important. And the last wife says, my husband and I are enjoying such a sweeter relationship these days. I have learned to be keenly aware of what I am communicating, including facial expressions and tone of voice. And my husband has responded by allowing me to tell him when I'm feeling unloved. We have avoided the crazy cycle completely since I committed to be obedient to God in this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So pretty neat. So let's move into the acronym. C is for conquest. Oh, he talks about how the men's words are like manly words, conquest. You appreciate his desire to work and to achieve. So Emerson defines conquest as the inborn desire of the man to go out and conquer the challenges of his world, to work and to achieve. A husband values respect more than love, which is hard for us women to understand because we are wired by God to focus on love. Genesis 2:15 says this, "The Lord God placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it." God wired men for work and to provide for their families. Have you ever said, "Thanks for working"? Emerson suggests writing your husband a note stating you are thankful he works and you respect him for it. It's not easy if you also work, I get that, and he doesn't thank you for it, or if your full-time job is taking care of the house and you never get thanked, but try this. See if it makes a difference to him. It most likely will, and maybe then you will get the words that you want to hear as well. Okay, so the first list for us wives for the conquest, your husband will feel you appreciate his desire to work and achieve when you tell him verbally or in writing that you value his work efforts. You express your faith in him related to his chosen field. You listen to his work stories as closely as you expect him to listen to your accounts of what happens in the family or with your work. You see yourself as his helpmate and counterpart and talk with him about this whenever possible. You allow him to dream as you did when you were courting. You don't dishonor or subtly criticize his work in the field to get him to show more love in the family. Second one is hierarchy. You appreciate his desire to protect and provide. So the biblical meaning of hierarchy, we can find that in Ephesians 5:22-24, which says this, "For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything." So a lot of times people don't like these verses, that word submit. I just want to read what he says about this in the book because I think he explains it really well. It says, God is not giving husbands some carte blanche label of superior. He is giving husbands a tremendous responsibility, as Paul clearly points out in the next few verses. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, that he might present himself to the church in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and blameless. Here, the responsibilities of being head are clearly spelled out. The husband is giving the awesome responsibility to love his wife just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That is why the good-willed husband who understands this passage sees it as his duty to protect his wife. At the same time, the wife is called upon to place herself under that protection. This is the biblical definition of hierarchy. It is not male superiority for the sake of putting down the female. It is the male's responsibility to place himself over the female and protect her. How this works out in the interplay between husband and wife in marriage can take some interesting turns. I want to read you a story. This is really a sweet story. There are many ways to show your husband respect. Just look for ways to appreciate his desire to protect and provide, especially when things aren't going too well for him. Dr. E.V. Hill, a dynamic minister who served as senior pastor of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles, lost his wife Jane to cancer a few years ago. At her funeral, Dr. Hill described some of the ways she had made him a better man. As a struggling young preacher, Evie had trouble earning a living. Evie came home one night and found the house dark. When he opened the door, he saw that Jane had prepared a candlelight dinner for two. He thought it was a great idea and went to the bathroom to wash his hands. He tried unsuccessfully to turn on the light. Then he felt his way into the bedroom and flipped another switch. Darkness prevailed. The young pastor went back to the dining room and asked Jane why the electricity was off. She began to cry. "You work so hard and we're trying," said Jane, "but it's pretty rough. I don't have enough money to pay the light bill. I didn't want you to know about it, so I thought we would just eat by candlelight." Dr. Hill described his wife's words with intense emotion. She could have said, I've never been in this situation before. I was reared in the home of Dr. Carruthers, and we never had our lights cut off. She could have broken my spirit. She could have ruined me. She could have demoralized me. But instead she said, somehow or other, we'll get these lights back on. But tonight, let's eat by candlelight. Very, very, very sweet story. So we need to look for ways to appreciate our husband's desire to protect and divide, especially when things aren't going well for him. Write a message. Here's a challenge for all of us wives. Write a message to your husband and sign it with all my respect instead of with all my love. I think you'll get his attention. So here's our list for hierarchy. Your husband will feel you appreciate his desire to protect and provide when you verbalize your admiration of him for protecting you and being willing to die for you. You praise his commitment to provide for and protect you and the family. He needs to know you do not take this for granted. You empathize when he reveals his male mindset about position, status, rank, or being one up or one down, particularly at work. Be empathetic about that. You never mock the idea of looking up to him as your protector to prevent him from looking down on you. You never, in word or body language, put down his job or how much money he makes. You are always ready to figuratively light the candles, as Evie Hill's wife did when they couldn't afford to pay the light bill. And last, you quietly and respectfully voice concerns about finances and try to offer solutions on where you might be able to cut spending. So really work together on those things. And I love this picture. A king will always protect his queen. Sometimes we don't like that verse and the word submit, but really God calls our husbands to protect and to provide for us. Okay, the A in chairs stands for authority. You appreciate his desire to serve and lead. Again, Ephesians 5:22-23. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of his wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He is the savior of his body, the church. Okay, so we just read that. The word authority doesn't sit well with many women. What we need to understand is that for a Christian couple, we need to look to the Bible and to this verse. Okay, a good-willed husband does not try to use his position as the head as some kind of club to beat down his wife and children. That's not the Christian thing to do. He acts responsibly and lovingly to be the leader that God has asked him to be. When love and respect are both present in a relationship, couples can usually resolve the conflict and come to an agreement. Okay, so this verse isn't about a wife being, submissive and scared of her husband. It's about the husband taking the position of responsibility in the relationship. If we will grant our husbands authority, as scripture describes it, things are much more likely to fall into place. If you try to undermine your husband's authority or subtly rebel against it, the crazy cycle will spring to life again. So if we trust God, women, we can do this. And if you want more details about this verse and what that means, definitely get the book. So here's our list for A, authority. He will feel you appreciate his authority and leadership. If you want to use the word leadership and authority together, that it's a better understanding of what the verse means. It's about his leadership, not his authority over you. You tell him you are thankful for his strength and enjoy being able to lean on him at times. You support his self-image as a leader. You never say, you're responsible, but we're still equal, so don't make a decision I don't agree with. You praise his good decisions. You are gracious if he makes a bad decision. You disagree with him only in private and honor his authority in front of the children. You give your reasons for disagreeing quietly and reasonably, but you never attack his right to lead. And you do not play head games with him to make him back down and be a loving peacemaker. That's not going to work so well. I, insight. You appreciate his desire to analyze and counsel. In many marriages, it's easy for a wife to write off a husband's insight and suggestions because she thinks she doesn't need them or he has no right to give them. So if you're not happy with your husband's leadership, ask yourself these questions. Did my husband ever seek to lead in our marriage, but I differed because I felt it was stupid? Ask yourself, do I send him a message that I do not intend to follow him if he makes a decision contrary to what I believe is correct? Do I send a message that says, I want to lead, but only when it bolsters and carries out my desires? Do I want my husband to be responsible, but if he's irresponsible, in my opinion, am I exercising veto power? And last question, do my words and actions communicate you are responsible, but I have authority? Those are some hard questions. I'm sure we can all say yes to some of those, or maybe regularly we're answering yes. So let's ask ourselves if we may possibly have an attitude of self-righteousness, at least to some degree, if you've said yes to any of those questions. So instead, our husbands will feel we appreciate his insight and his counsel when you tell him up front, you just need his ear, okay? Don't complain to him later that he always tries to fix you, but try to use those phrases, and maybe he will use the phrase, do you just need me to listen or do you need me to fix it? You both need to work together on this. You thank him for his advice without acting insulted or like he doesn't care about your feelings. Because remember, he's wired to analyze and counsel. We are not, for the most part. You recognize his problem-solving approach as his male brand of empathy. So this is how men, we do it in a loving way for empathy. They do it in more of an analyzing, problem-solving way. You realize your vulnerabilities, especially among males, and value his protection. You counsel him respectfully when you differ with his ideas. You can be right, but wrong at the top of your voice. You sometimes let him fix things and applaud his solutions. You let him know that you believe God has made us male and female for a purpose and that we need each other. You admit that you can sin and thank him for his perception and godly counsel. R, relationship. You appreciate his desire for a shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. According to Emerson, men communicate by sharing experiences. Women share by talking to each other, examining and infusing the experiences with their impressions and emotions. Men share experiences by sharing an activity. Men want shoulder-to-shoulder time, not talking, but being near one another. That builds him up, but is kind of confusing to us. So he gives some examples in the book where, that's why I picked this picture here. Their faces don't look too happy, but it shows shoulder to shoulder time. So he says, if your husband asks you to come sit outside while he's painting the trim on the house, do it. He doesn't want to talk to you. He just wants you to be there with him. Or maybe he asks you to come watch a game with him on television. He doesn't want to talk. He's watching the game, but he wants you near him. That is called shoulder to shoulder time. And if you have sons and boys, after I listened to this and went through this, it's true for your sons as well. A lot of times in the car, it's the time you get to talk to them. You have their captured attention, like on the way to school. And one day my son's like, I don't need a lecture right now. You know, it's like, we think it's our time to talk, but all they want to do is just be quiet and enjoy your time together saying nothing. So to women, that's hard to understand, but for a man, it builds him up, okay? It shows that we like him, and there must be some give and take. So just as we want him to make the effort to talk and to be with us face to face, we must also make the effort to be silent with him shoulder to shoulder. It will energize him, even though it usually makes no sense to us through our pink sunglasses. Okay, but try this sometime and see if it energizes your husband. So our list, your husband will feel you value his shoulder-to-shoulder friendship when you tell him you like him and you show it. He knows you love him, but he often wonders if you really like him, especially if you're on the crazy cycle. You probably don't like him at that moment. So let's get off the crazy cycle into the energizing cycle, and let's show him that we like him on top of loving him. You respond to his invitation to engage in recreational activities together, or you come along to watch him. You don't have to go every time, but just now and then will energize him more than you realize. You enable him to open up and talk to you as you do things shoulder to shoulder. You encourage him to spend time alone, which energizes him to reconnect with you later. And you don't denounce his shoulder-to-shoulder activities with his male friends to get him to spend more face-to-face time with you. Respect his friendships, and he will be more likely to want you to join him shoulder to shoulder at other times. So we all need time with our friends, and your husband does as well. Last letter in the acronym is sexuality. You appreciate his desire for sexual intimacy. Sex for him and affection for her is a two-way street. He should minister to your spirit to have access to your body. So too, you should minister to his body if you want access to his spirit. There's two keys to understanding your husband. Number one, his sexuality is much different from yours. So this is typical. Proverbs 5:19 says, she is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts satisfy you always, but you always be captivated by her love. This verse speaks to the fact that most men are visually oriented when it comes to sexual desire. Most women are not. It gives a funny example of, let's say you're just getting out of the shower and your husband comes into the bathroom. Most likely he's going to be like, ooh, honey. And we walk into the bathroom as he's getting out of the shower and we're like, hey, you're getting water all over the floor. So that just like shows you, it's just a funny example of how men think differently and are way more visually excited than women. He needs sexual release just as you need emotional release. That's intimacy for a lot of men is during sex or making love. We need that emotional support ahead of time to feel close and connected, like we talked about before. And he needs the intimacy of making love to feel close to you. Satan tries to tempt husbands when they're deprived of sexual release. So this is so prevalent in our society right now with all the porn addictions. I mentioned Break Free Sheboygan County before. If you know someone that's struggling with that or you are yourself, please connect with them and they can help you. You can't get what you need by depriving your partner of what they need. Okay? So don't think that if I don't give her love, she's going to give you respect. That's the crazy cycle. Okay, so women, we need to respect that men need this sexual release. And hopefully as you work together and he does the couple things for you and you do the chairs things for him, that you will come to a place where you're feeling loved, he's feeling respected, and then you can come together in the sexual way that's fulfilling for both of you. So your husband will feel you appreciate his desire for sexual intimacy when you respond to him sexually more often and initiate sex periodically. Take turns initiating. Don't leave it all on one person. That's not fair to that person. You understand he needs sexual release just as you need emotional release. You let him acknowledge his sexual temptations without fearing he'll be unfaithful and without shaming him. And you don't try to make him open up to you verbally by depriving him of sex. Okay, that's not going to work either. And I want you to know, as we talk about these things, and Emerson and Sarah will say this when they present, these are generalizations. These are generally true, especially in the area of sex. You might have a wife who has higher sexual desire than the husband. That can be the case. Usually it's about 80% generally that men are this way, 20% that women are. So it's just the way God made us. He made men more visual and women more emotional. But if you're not in that category and it's flip-flop, that's okay. Just use these principles the opposite way then. And just know that just typically these are the things that are true. Okay, that is the end of the energizing cycle. And the last cycle we're going to talk about is the rewarded cycle. So his love, regardless of her respect regardless of his love. This is when you make the decision to love or respect your spouse unconditionally and to let a servant's heart control your communications. That's when you're in the rewarded cycle. So basically, maybe only one of you is willing to do these things and the other is not, but you are a believer and you want to honor God. So you move into what's called the rewarded cycle, where it doesn't matter what the other person is doing. You are going to be faithful to your relationship with the Lord, and you are going to love your spouse unconditionally or respect your spouse unconditionally, regardless of what they do. Okay, so this is definitely not easy, but that is the reward. And we will receive that reward probably when we pass on and go to heaven. So it's hard, but if you are in that situation where you're watching this alone because your spouse doesn't want to improve your relationship, but you're going to stay in the relationship and you're going to stay committed because that's what you have vowed to God and your spouse to do, and there's no kind of abuse or bad things going on. The real purpose then behind showing love and respect to one another is to glorify God and to obey what he teaches in his word. So if that is where you are at, this cycle is for you. We're not going to spend a ton of time here, but try prayer. I'm sure you already have if you are a believer. Try prayer. If your spouse won't pray with you, pray for them every single day. Our reward is in heaven. It may be difficult here. One of the illustrations he gives in the book and in the videos is about pretending that Jesus is standing just behind your spouse, just behind their shoulder. So the way you're talking to them and the way you're communicating with them, how you're treating them, is like you're actually doing it to Jesus. So think of it that way. It's a great picture to keep in your mind. So in the ultimate sense, your marriage has nothing to do with your spouse. It has everything to do with your relationship to Jesus Christ. Matthew 25:31 through 36 is a verse that you can read. I'm not going to read it right now if you want to jot that down. My response to my spouse is my responsibility. My response is my responsibility. Spouses don't cause us to be the way they are. They reveal the way we are. Okay, so if you have an unbelieving spouse and you're trying to make your marriage work, your response is your responsibility, and they are going to reveal the way we really are to us, okay? Pink and blue together make God's royal purple. So that's kind of a neat picture. When you're together, if you are together in this and you're working hard at your relationship and you're honoring God with your relationship, you are royalty together. Isn't that a neat picture? Pink and blue together make purple, God's royal color. So some key principles that Jesus practiced as we kind of wrap up here today: be truthful. Okay, lies undermine a marriage and your family. So always be truthful with your spouse. Uplift each other daily. Both as parents, you want to uplift your children, and as a spouse, like uplifting, be uplifting, lift one another up every single day. Forgive. Sometimes this is hard to do when there's been major betrayal in a relationship, but it is possible to forgive. All of us fail. We need to be quick to grant each other grace and forgiveness, just as Jesus did for us. Another one of his principles is thanksgiving. Thank him for the strength and gifts he's given us, that he's given our spouse, that he's given our children. And scripture. Keep all of your heart in his word, trusting in and talking about his promises to us. This will keep you lifted up, especially if you're going through something really difficult right now. So keep these principles in mind. And if you are a believing couple, ask your friends to pray for you, find some accountability, but just rely on the strength that the Lord can give you to improve your marriage. And if you go and you practice love and you practice respect, you're going to have a marriage that lasts a lifetime. So again, the 3 cycles were the crazy cycle. That's where you're going to hop on it once in a while. Emerson and Sarah say, we're still good on the crazy cycle. Everybody does. But the difference is when you learn these principles and you watch for that deflating of your spouse, so you know, oops, did I disrespect him? Did I make her feel unloved? Then you can move more quickly into that energizing cycle. And hopefully we will all get to the point where it doesn't matter what they do. Our reward is being faithful to God and what he has commanded us in our marriages. So I've mentioned the book many times. I've suggested that you read it. We do have several copies in our library here at Great Marriages. So if you would like to make an appointment with us to check out a book, feel free to just give our office a call and let me know, or just order it so you can have a copy at home. We would love that as well. And my last request would be for you to fill out your evaluation. So when we sent you the link, we also had a link to an evaluation online. So we would love to hear what you thought about this event, ways that we could improve it. Should we do it again? We usually do it in person, of course, but since we are still close to the public and not doing group gatherings, we decided to present this information online for you because we believe that it is super important information for every single relationship to have. So if you have any questions about anything that we went through in this event, please feel free to email us, call us, contact us through our website. We would love to hear from you. Again, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Check out our website. If you go to great-marriages.org/events, you are going to find what's coming up next for us. It is April right now, 2021, and starting in June, we hope to be meeting back in person. So we hope to see you real soon in person, and I hope you enjoyed Love and Respect, and we'll put it into practice in your relationship. We'll see you soon.